Grab your coffee and kick up your feet. It's time for a Monday morning edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next couple hours, we've got so much to get you caught up on after a wild weekend of action across all the sports. Caroline Fenton, we will start today like we start every day with 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Happy Monday, Jason Fitz, and happy week 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. What is not very happy is the fact that we did not get to watch Travis Hunter play football, because it is always a privilege to watch that man play and do his thing on the field. He was out for the Jags' second preseason game against the Saints on Saturday with what head coach Liam Cohen called an upper body injury. And I don't know when in football we started to adopt, the hockey dialogue of injuries. So, not a whole lot of specifics there of exactly what is going on with Travis Hunter. He was also held out of the Jags walkthrough on Friday just as a precaution. Now, as we know, Travis Hunter is elite on both sides of the football, and he's been practicing on both sides of the ball. He has participated in 364 snaps in 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 in the last 15 practices. 17 on offense, 16 on defense in Thursday's scrimmage alone. I mean, those numbers are truly unheard of. It's not anything that's new to Travis Hunter. He was playing 150 to 200 snaps a game when he was at Colorado. But look, we don't know the severity of this injury. We really don't know any sort of details about the injury at all. We just know that it's an upper body injury, at least right now, this morning on Monday, August 18th. So we may get more information as time comes along. It could be something that's just a bump and a bruise, but it could be something that's even further than that. We don't know. Now, that brings up the question about the longevity of playing Travis Hunter on both sides of the football. Look, like I said, he's elite on both sides of the ball. And the last thing that you as a coach and Liam Cohen coaching and developing Travis Hunter wants to do is take Superman's cape away from him. Take something away from a player that makes that player special. But the more and more snaps you play, the higher and higher the likelihood of injury. Of course, there's a likelihood of injury, or at least a possibility of injury, waking up and rolling out of bed in the morning. I totally understand that. But how long can Travis Hunter continue to play at this rate and take this sheer number of snaps day over day, week over week, and really year over year? Does this injury kind of maybe throw up a warning flag to pull Travis Hunter just a little bit and change the approach that the Jags are taking with their dynamic young superstar in Travis Hunter?
Yeah, all eyes will be on what the Jags do throughout not just the preseason, but the regular season, because this will be historic. All right, I'll get to my first point on my mind. And Caroline, there are certain people we all know in life that sometimes you go through life and you just decide, I'm going to put a little flag next to their name, and I'm not going to answer it anytime they call. If I'm in the NFL, that's what I'm doing when Howie Roseman calls. We have a trade that happened over the course of the weekend, a reasonable trade in importance. The Houston Texans trading John Mechie to the Eagles. In return, Harrison Bryant, the tight end, goes to Houston. Now, there's a couple of things here. Number one, the Eagles, coming off the Super Bowl, continue to build a stacked and deep wide receiver room. Mechie had very high expectations from some that covered college football coming into the league, and obviously health was part of why that wasn't met right out of the gates. But the Eagles get the opportunity to add to the depth of that room and see what else they can do in developing a young player that they think could be a star. Additionally, I'm just simply never going to make a trade with Howie Roseman. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night he texts me and says, "You up?" My answer is, no, sir, I'm not. Why? Because Howie Roseman is, I think, flat out, without any comparison, without any contest, the top GM in the NFL. And all the Eagles do is outmaneuver everybody. So when he calls and says, oh, yeah, if you call him and he says, yeah, I'll take that trade, my first thought is, okay, what did I just screw up? And on top of all of that, GM should look around and say, wow, when's the last time a GM pulled off a trade for a wide receiver? I know A.J. Brown, John Mechie aren't playing in the same universe in any of our minds, but John Robinson is out here looking for TV work because he made a trade that he will regret the rest of his life, I would think, when it comes to sending A.J. Brown to the Eagles. I'm not willing to risk that at all. I don't know. You don't know. We don't know how these things are going to play out. It takes a little bit of time. And I understand the Texans needed some tight end help. But at the end of the day, no matter how lonely you are at the end of the night, there are certain people you simply don't text. Howie Roseman is going to be one of those. Why? Because he's always going to leave you at the altar at the end of it all, wondering how you got it wrong and he got it right. So for now, benefit of the doubt tells me that the Eagles will win this trade, and I continue to wonder why anybody ever returns their phone calls. And Caroline Fenton, that brings us to our last point, the big point of the weekend, the social media phenomenon known as the dominance of Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler, obviously a big weekend, a big come-from-behind win in the BMW Championship, comes back from 4 strokes down, and he gets the big dub. And he does it in dominant fashion with a landmark shot that everybody keeps talking about, the world tweeting about it. Everybody wants to have this conversation. And Caroline, the problem with the conversation we're having, we're going to get into a lot of Scottie over the course of the show, but the problem we're having with the conversation right now is it feels like we can't say Scottie Scheffler without at some point making a Tiger Woods comparison. And I think at the end of the day, trying to even evoke the name of Tiger with Scottie is a lose-lose situation, because as good as Scottie Scheffler is, and as great as this is, and all the elite company type tweets you see, the cultural phenomenon known as Tiger Woods was something different. And I just wish that we could have the Scottie conversation without having to then couch it under the name of Tiger Woods.
Well, look, I mean, Scottie's chip shot on the 17th hole, I mean, 82 Unreal. Feet on a chip. It was, and the call was truly just like gave me chills. You know, I can't believe what I just saw. It was, felt like it defied the laws of physics, and it continues to leave all of us kind of dumbfounded at the greatness of what we're watching with Scottie Scheffler. But I think we always have to be very, very, very cautious with comparing people who are, you know, at the top of their respective sports to the greatest of all time. And they're easy debates to have, right? We have the LeBron versus Jordan debate and conversation. It feels like every single July on every single sports talk show. We have the Mahomes versus Brady conversation going into this past year's Super Bowl. We always want to compare the great ones now to the greatest of all time. There is something that Tiger Woods did that Scottie Scheffler can never achieve, and it was the social and societal impact that Tiger Woods had on the game of golf. Look, Tiger Woods came on the scene in the late 90s and early 2000s. I was born in 1997. I have never lived in a world where a black man was not celebrated and welcomed in the game of golf. And Tiger Woods talks about several years in the beginning of his career, he wasn't even welcomed in clubhouses because of the color of his skin. That is inconceivable to think about now. And those were barriers that Tiger Woods broke down. Scottie Scheffler will never have that societal impact. But I think that we can put that aside and honor what Tiger Woods did off the course, and we can talk about just what these two have done on the course. Scottie Scheffler and what he's achieved in his, 7 years since joining the PGA Tour, and Tiger Woods, what he accomplished throughout his entire career. We can make this comparison that what Scottie Scheffler is doing now is on course and on par, no pun intended, but maybe I'll just take it anyways, that he's on par for what Tiger Woods has accomplished and achieved. I mean, Scottie Scheffler now has 18 PGA Tour wins. Now, Tiger Woods has significantly more, but he's been around significantly longer. I think that what we can do is just embrace the fact that we can even have this debate and conversation, that Tiger Woods is the greatest to ever play the game of golf. And how lucky are we that in the same lifetime, we get to have the comparison conversation with somebody else and enjoy the greatness that Scottie Scheffler is doing now, while also honoring the greatness of what Tiger Woods did in his prime. I think that we can do both of those things.
The hardest part about this is you mentioned the LeBron versus Michael Jordan. We do this all the time. And these are the equivalent of my dad can beat up your dad from when we're a little kid, because they're never actually proven. There's no way we'll actually know, would LeBron or MJ be better? Like, we don't get the glory of seeing the two of them take each other on in their prime. So by default, the argument comparing one legend to another is failed, right? But there is some part of this conversation that I think what we need to do is we need to look at maybe Kobe. Instead of Michael LeBron, let's look at Kobe. Somehow along the way, Kobe stopped getting some of those comparisons and he created his own lane. It was just a Kobe conversation. So one that for whatever reason, we don't seem to want to allow to happen for LeBron. I wish we could. But realistically, I think that's what we have to find for Scottie. Like, Scottie is a phenomenon. You see LeBron out there. Every celebrity was tweeting about it over the course of the weekend. It's awesome to see. The problem is Golf needed a breakthrough person that could break barriers. Now, I will always acknowledge and loudly acknowledge that Caroline and I obviously were two white people talking about the impact of Tiger Woods. Let's be very clear about that, right? So I understand that there's just portions of this conversation that we see or did not live in the same way. You have to acknowledge at some point the cultural phenomenon of Tiger Woods was so great. It was so impactful. It broke down barriers, not just because of the way he looked, but also because, frankly, people that didn't even give a damn about golf suddenly cared about golf because they cared about Tiger. There are certain people that are phenomenons. They're sensations. Now, Scottie Scheffler can be great. He may turn out to be even better than Tiger. Oh, awesome. But he will never be more impactful than Tiger. And your random person will never give a damn the same way that they gave a damn about Tiger. It's just impossible. You can't recreate firsts. And because of that, what we end up with is a situation where I think what we should do is simply normalize the greatness of Scottie Scheffler, which is happening right now, without expecting that to be transcendent. Because frankly, to no fault of his own, but when you're a rich white dude from Texas playing golf, like you just don't hit the same way. It's just impossible. Random somebody that's never watched golf before doesn't look at Scottie Scheffler on the grass and say, you know what? Golly, man, I see a little bit of myself in that guy. Wow, if he did it, I can do it. Like that's not real. There is no that level of relatability is simply never going to exist, and it doesn't have to. Like you don't have to be relatable to be great. I just think that what we have to understand is that the greatness of Tiger wasn't even really just in the result. He's the rare unicorn because he was a first and he was also a GOAT. And when you get a first and a GOAT together, it's like the first girl that you ever fell in love with. And it was real love and it lasted forever. And it hit your heart. And 30 years later, you still have a little piece of you that belongs to that person. That's real in society because it was so great. And it's a first. And that's what Tiger has. No matter what, Scottie can be incredible. He could never lose again. And there's a real conversation about the greatness. And we just all have to accept as a society that level of greatness has nothing to do with Tiger because it doesn't have the ability to be a first, Caroline. And that's what's so impactful.
I mean, Tiger Woods dominated in a game that was not made for him. And I think that alone, combined with just his greatness, that will transcend the test of time. Like that will be in every history book of any, oral history of sports, period. That Tiger Woods was just that dominant on the course and made that many more, that much more impact off the course. Now, I mean, you look at those tweets, Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James, that's the most real, recognized, the greatest of all times. Maybe not the greatest of all times. Let me rewind that. The greatest that we're seeing now, Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James, some of the most dominant athletes right now, recognizing what Scottie Scheffler is doing. And I think we have to give Scottie his praise because what he is doing is so incredibly fun to watch. And while the societal impact that Tiger Woods made will never be matched by anybody, I do think there is a certain impact that Scottie Scheffler made in a time in the Live Golf Tour, when the PGA Tour was viewed as the most traditional kind of entity in sports. And then the Live Golf Tour comes in and felt like it kind of tainted that it was a Saudi league, that they were paying some of the best golfers in the world hundreds and millions of dollars to be part of kind of this gimmicky league. And it felt like this league in the PGA that we put on a pedestal that feels so impenetrable all of a sudden was penetrated by greed and by money. Scottie Scheffler stuck with the PGA Tour, and we're seeing the success that he is having, that he is a celebrity now, that even people that aren't diehard golf fans, I will put myself in that category, are so drawn to what Scottie Scheffler is doing because we are so drawn to greatness. That in a time when the PGA Tour felt vulnerable, in a time where there was some concern about the future of the PGA Tour and the future of the sanctity of the game of golf, Scottie Scheffler was one of the good guys that stayed with the good guys and was successful with the good guys. I mean, look, for example, Jon Rahm just won the Live Golf Individual Championship and just made $18 million in doing so. This was just yesterday. And I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about it until our producer, Mike Goldfarb, pointed this out to me. And I don't think that anyone listening knew about that either because nobody cares. And nobody cares about the Live Golf Tour. That's great. I mean, Jon Rahm, enjoy your home in the south of France with your $18 million. Truly, I hope I get the invite one day. but it does feel like it's one of those good, feel-good Disney movie kind of stories that Scottie Scheffler said no to the payday, and he is the one that is dominating our conversations as the greatest one right now.
There is an element to your point. I learned the term, to be very, very transparent. I learned the term sports washing during the Live Golf, sports washing during the Live Golf rise. I learned that. I had no idea what it was. To that end, it only works if people continue to flock to it and care. And Live, nobody cares about it anymore. The interesting thing about Scottie Scheffler, I will say, is that golf needs a star. We all know that. Golf needs a transcendent star, right? And Scottie Scheffler has proven he is a transcendent star. Golf didn't need a hero right now. And that, in many ways, is what Tiger Woods became in his beginning to so many people, particularly flocking to watching the red shirt, seeing what happened. It became this iconic Superman, sort of Batman. It rose above. Scottie Scheffler doesn't have to be any of those things. He just has to go out and be great. And he's proven that he's great. He's proven that he has a real opportunity to be an all-time great. And that in and of itself is worth appreciating, because you're right. When we forget that somebody else won $18 million yesterday, that speaks to what Scottie Scheffler has done. He has proven to be the star that golf needs. I just hope that we can allow him simply to be only that. We'll break down more Scottie Scheffler throughout the course of the show. Obviously, got some questions that relate to some of the other athletes that were tweeting about him. We'll do that. But coming up next, we had preseason football, and that preseason football has us trying to figure out what to make of some big-name quarterbacks out getting their action this weekend. We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
There's a quote that you said, there's entertainers and competitors, and I'm a competitor, and I understand there's entertainers. What context is that quote given?
All you in this room are entertainers, and you have a job to do, and I respect it, right? And I'm a competitor, so I have a job to do as well. And I think, just understanding that, that's how I've lived by, and I've said that multiple times, so definitely not a new quote, but something that I've definitely said.
So you were referring to media as the entertainer?
Yeah, I just said that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think, how social media is, I think some people are trying to take that as something that you probably did not mean it as. Some people are trying to make it out to be sort of a shot at Scheffler. Can you just explain?
Yeah, first off, I'm all about our team, and each other. I would never make that, and I've said it before, that's why it's interesting, but for me, I've explained it. Entertainers are you all, competitor. That's what I am, and all my teammates, and we both have jobs to do. So that's it.
That's Dillon Gabriel standing at the podium after his preseason debut, clarifying this quote. And this quote, there's entertainers and there's competitors, and I totally understand that. It's my job to compete. That quote was taken wildly out of context over the course of the weekend. If there's anything I've learned in my years, I will credit my friend and longtime coworker, Sarah Spain. The first time I started working with Sarah Spain, she said, every time you see an answer, ask what the question was before you react to it. This is the greatest example of that we've seen in a minute, Caroline, because social media was blowing up that Dillon Gabriel threw shade at Shedeur Sanders. From the outset, it was clear he didn't. This is part of what I hate about the way that we are covering the Browns, the way we are searching for drama. We are desperately trying to make it Dillon Gabriel, the human being, versus Shedeur Sanders, the human being. Caroline, it's not that at all.
I mean, this would not be the first time that there was a quote taken completely out of context and slapped on a graphic, and then it made its rounds on social media. And look, if you don't want to seek out the context, you are not going to. And I don't think it's the obligation of the everyman or any sports fan to make sure that they say, okay, was the context correct? Because that's not how social media works, unfortunately. I was with you that I saw the graphic first, and I thought, whoa, that's a very strange and bold thing for Dillon Gabriel to say. But then I saw the entire clip. And I saw the sideline reporter and I listened to the sideline reporter's question, and she said, you gave some great wisdom as to how to quote unquote block out the noise. How do you do that? And that's when he said, there's entertainers and there's competitors, and my job is to compete. And when you hear the way that he said it, it doesn't sound like there was any shade being thrown or there was any sort of ill will behind that. I think that he genuinely meant, look, the talking heads on TV and people like us, their job is to have a really interesting debate on television and to, kind of have this shock jock kind of mentality, but they can talk about all they want to talk about. My job is to be a competitor. I can understand the connection that people are drawing, right? Because, Shedeur Sanders has songs on Spotify, and so much of Colorado football was the flashiness of it all. There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of players and teams and coaches and sports that are incredibly flashy. There's nothing wrong with that. So I can see the connection being drawn there. But I understand that maybe Dillon Gabriel could have used his words more carefully, that maybe it's a little bit of naivety of him saying this and not acknowledging some connections that people could draw. But I think that's kind of a testament to all of these narratives being made up about Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel and maybe the rivalry that may or may not exist between the two. Those are just narratives that we on the outside are cooking up to where he can't even draw that connection from the inside because it's a connection that doesn't even exist. Could he have used his words more carefully? Yes, absolutely he could have. And by the sounds of his press conference there, it's probably a learning lesson for him because he sounded pissed that he even had to talk about it. But I don't think that it was any sort of shade being thrown. I don't think that there was any sort of, prickliness to what Dillon Gabriel was trying to say.
There is I think back to Josh Allen. The first time I ever interviewed Josh Allen, it was funny. You got like a pretty relaxed version of Josh, and he was pretty open and would tell you things. The 5th or 6th or 10th time I've interviewed Josh Allen in my career, it becomes, we're just learning how to get better as an offense. And we talk about coach speak all the time, quarterback speak all the time, where they're wildly vanilla. Caroline, they're vanilla because of things like this. Like, I don't think it's Dillon Gabriel's job to worry about his words. He answered the question correctly and was clearly throwing shade at the media. We just couched that in a different way. Not we, you, and I, but as a society, like, it's not Dillon Gabriel's fault that Twitter's too stupid to look for context. I can't sit here and back down from this concept of like the quote was put out there and people made it into Dillon Gabriel saying the wrong thing. Like, that's not a statement to what Dillon Gabriel needs to learn in my mind. That's a statement to what society needs to learn. Slow the hell down. Like, just this concept of, well, I read those words and it must mean this because that's what I think. That's what's wrong with the way we assimilate everything. We are now in this red zone society where you see 5 plays on a red zone game and you're like, well, that guy must have played his tail off because you didn't watch the rest of the game. Like, we want everything to be truncated into Cliff's notes if you're my age, Spark notes if you're your age, right? We want everything to be in this quick, digestible format where we can suddenly make big, sweeping judgments. Like, here's the real of it. Dillon Gabriel went out and played pretty well in that football game. He was okay.
Mm-hmm.
He had an interception that I don't pin on Dillon Gabriel because we don't know who ran the wrong route. Two wide receivers shouldn't be able to play kumbaya by the campfire in the same spot where a quarterback's throwing the football. Like, somebody somewhere made a mistake there. We don't have the context to know that. So Dillon Gabriel played pretty well. But like I said last week, I'm maintaining consistency here. Shedeur Sanders played pretty well. I don't think that changes much. Dillon Gabriel played okay. I don't think that changes much. Like, we just don't have enough context on any of this, and that frustrates the world because the reality is everybody wants to talk about Shedeur, click on Shedeur. Our videos about Shedeur get views. So then everybody has to have a take on Shedeur versus Dillon, when the real take is like, maybe if we would all sit down, shut up, and wait, we'd actually get the answer by the way the entire battle plays out. We're just not willing to do that because this is bigger than a battle. It's now a sensation.
Yeah, I mean, but the based off of how they played, obviously the pick six, not great for Dillon Gabriel. I don't pin that on him. I always believe that every interception and every turnover has a different story. Sometimes it's the quarterback's fault, sometimes it's not, and I don't pin that one on Dillon Gabriel, but that is going to be a very bold demerit as we look at the box score of Dillon Gabriel that Shedeur Sanders did not have. That doesn't mean that Shedeur Sanders was perfect in his preseason debut. I mean, he ran backwards a couple of times in that game against the Panthers. You cannot run backwards in the National Football League. So both of these guys have looked like rookies at times, and both of these guys have shined and have shown us why they were desirable prospects in the draft process. But I'll go back to what you said about Dillon Gabriel, and we as a society need to find context. We as a society don't owe Dillon Gabriel anything, unfortunately. And I don't mean for that to sound harsh. I don't mean for that to sound like we shouldn't listen to what Dillon Gabriel has to say. But if we're putting the onus on the Joe Schmo on Twitter to go seek out context for a certain quote, I think that we're putting too much, we're giving them too much credit for what they might do. As a quarterback in the National Football League, whether you were a third round pick and maybe a backup, or a first round pick and a starter who just won the Super Bowl, you have to understand the impact of your words, especially when Dillon Gabriel is in a quarterback room that is under the microscope. You have to understand that anything that you say is going to be picked apart and cut into a million different little pieces and taken out of context. You have to cover your own ass. I think about what Ryan Tannehill said a couple of years ago. It's when I was in Nashville doing local sports talk radio in Nashville and covering the team. It was right after the Titans drafted Malik Willis. And Ryan Tannehill said, "It's not my job to mentor Malik." And that was the number one headline on every single sports media website. It was the topic of discussion on SportsCenter and NFL Live and all of these shows across America, picking apart what Ryan Tannehill said when it was taken out of context. And if you just read the graphic, that sounds pretty harsh, doesn't it? But when you listen to what he said, you realize, like, look, it's not his job to, pat him on the back and, mentor him every single day and break down the playbook. No, what his job is to be a leader, and Malik Willis can, learn by absorption and be a sponge and just kind of observe Ryan Tannehill. It's not Ryan Tannehill's job to go out of his way to make sure that every quarterback in that room is taken care of. And I use that example because I think it's the perfect example that at least comes to mind for me of quarterbacks have to be aware of what they're saying. That even though I agree with Ryan Tannehill, that's not his job. He has to understand the impact of his words. And I think Dillon Gabriel has to too. And every quarterback across America has to understand that what they are saying, the words coming out of their mouth and the words that may be printed on a social media graphic or in a newspaper have impact.
Joe Flacco is one that has also said the same thing. Not my job to mentor quarterbacks. Joe Flacco likely to be named the starter, right? Like, we're going to find out in the next couple of days. Kevin Stefanski said that he's going to name a starting quarterback this week so that we can figure out, what the process looks like. They can get in a rhythm going into the end of preseason. Caroline, it's clear. Like, this is all much Shedeur about nothing, right? Like, it is clear that Joe Flacco, who's been a bubble wrap throughout the entire preseason, is going to be the starter. So the only real question is who's going to be the backup, right? Again, I should remind everybody, the depth chart didn't change after the last preseason game. And while Dillon Gabriel did have, the interception and a couple of other plays in there that I think he'd want back. I'm not sure the depth chart's going to change again. So we got 4 quarterbacks. We got Joe Flacco likely to be named the starter. I mean, are they going to carry 4 into the season?
Kevin Stefanski has said that, hey, look, we're comfortable carrying 4 into the season. I don't know if it's genuinely how he feels or if that's just, hey, I just want to kind of, put this to bed and not have that be the headlines and wondering, okay, which quarterback is going to be on the trading block? Say that again. Sorry, Fitzy.
Coaches never lie.
Oh, could you imagine a coach or a general manager, a front office person not being truthful? My goodness. In the NFL, I could never even imagine it. I can't believe they're going to carry 4 quarterbacks into the season, but let's just say Kenny Pickett, right? We haven't seen Kenny Pickett very much in the preseason. We haven't seen him in preseason games. If he really is dealing with an injury that is so bad that it'll keep him out for a month plus, then they can put Kenny Pickett on IR and then, upgrade either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders as the backup, and then they can deal with it whenever Kenny Pickett comes off IR. So I don't think it's the craziest thing that they would carry 4 quarterbacks. It is pretty crazy, right? Like it does not, like most teams carry 3 max, so carrying 4 seems a bit superfluous. But I also don't think that the Browns want to put either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders in a position where, sorry, Joe Flacco's hurt. Go out there and win us a football game. So I do think they carry 4 quarterbacks, which just sounds weird, right? That sounds gross.
No, but I'm with you. Your logic is right. Like, I think there's a good chance if this hamstring injury persists for Kenny Pickett, they could put him on IR, which buys them some time. But realistically, again, Kenny Pickett has been number 2 on the depth chart every single time. So what have we seen from Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel? Like, remember, Shedeur's good game in the first game, which was a great game for him, did not move him up to 3 on the depth chart. So now what we saw from Dillon Gabriel, is that enough to juxtapose 3 and 4? Okay. But what have we seen that would put either of those players above 2 on the depth chart? I just think that's too far of a reach. I genuinely believe that the Cleveland Browns are going to carry 4 quarterbacks into this season. Again, I think Kenny Pickett could end up on IR, and that gives them a little bit of an opportunity there. So we'll get more insight, though, throughout the course of the week on this. Andrew Siciliano, our teammate and the radio voice of the Cleveland Browns. Again, you can check Andrew out on Inside Coverage on Yahoo Sports Monday through Thursday. He will join us tomorrow. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw over the weekend, and, of course, his thoughts on what is going to happen with the quarterback battle. We'll keep all eyes on what it means for the future of the quarterback position in Cleveland. But coming up next on Yahoo Sports Daily, what are they doing in Cincinnati? One of their best players might be packing his bags and calling a moving company. Is it the right choice? We'll tell you next. Got some holdout updates for you here on Yahoo Sports Daily. A small step. Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin coming off the PUP, set to ramp up the next step in returning to practice, but there's no indication of progress on an extension. Season's looming. McLaurin will begin the process of getting his body ready. So Commanders fans can be excited he's headed back on the field, but no idea what that's going to mean for the actual future of, the contract situation. Carolina still has to be figured out.
He is under contract through this season, but if I'm the Commanders, look, as long as you have Jaden Daniels wearing a Commanders uniform, you are in a window to make a run for the playoffs. And I believe that in that building, they truly believe that they are Super Bowl contenders. Why wouldn't they believe that, right? They were in the NFC Championship game in Jaden Daniels' first year in Washington. So if you have that belief, then you are now in a window where you have to say, F it, open the checkbook. What do you want? Because we're giving it to you.
I will only tell people, check out Inside Coverage. Our great show, Charles Robinson, our awesome insider, made it very clear that the initial money that the McLaurin camp was asking for was jaw-dropping to the Washington Commanders. So way outside the realm of what they expected. We'll keep you updated if there's any news, Commanders fans. We're here for you throughout all of this. That's not the only holdout information happening right now, too, because obviously Micah Parsons is still out there trying to figure out what's going on. We don't have an update on Micah yet either, so it just feels like we're chasing our tails on a couple of these things, Caroline. There is no negotiations continue to stall. We have no idea at this point what's actually going to get Micah onto the sidelines in Washington or in Dallas.
A new contract, a new deal.
Yeah. Oh.
And Jerry Jones even said as much. When he was asked, what's holding up the Micah Parsons contract negotiations, Jerry said, nothing at all. Jerry Jones is acknowledging that if he wants all of this to end today, they can end it today. But why would Jerry want to end it today when we continue to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons every single day and probably will until that contract is signed? So I wholeheartedly believe in my heart of hearts that Micah Parsons will be a Dallas Cowboy for the foreseeable future and that he will be suiting up for week one. Whatever Jerry Jones says about how he's not confident that he's going to be playing week one, that is total and complete baloney. In my opinion, Jerry's just going to drag this out as long as he possibly can. And come September 9th or whenever it is, Micah Parsons will sign a deal. They're just going to extend this out as long as humanly possible. But Fitzy, there is another player that is holding out in contract negotiations I'm not as confident in is going to be wearing their respective jersey come September, and that is Trey Hendrickson. As we learned over the weekend that the Bengals are reportedly listening to trade offers for Trey Hendrickson. So I will ask you, my friend, should they? Should the Bengals trade Trey Hendrickson?
Let me be clear here. I don't think the Bengals will trade Trey Hendrickson. I do believe the Bengals should trade Trey Hendrickson. And I know this is a hot take. I've seen everybody across social media saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. My thing is, look, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks last year. Only one other time in history has the player that led the league in sacks been traded the following year, and that was Jared Allen. Only one other time, right? So I get that it's absolutely controversial to trade the league's leader in sacks. But that defense sucked last year. Like, congratulations. You had the league leader in sacks, and your defense was trash. It was hot garbage. Your defense was so bad that you got nowhere near the playoffs because of it, right? Like, that team you've got, and this is what everybody keeps saying, you got Joe Burrow, you've got a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. You need to fix the defense. Correct. They should have done that all offseason, but they didn't. So now we're sitting here, and it's like, okay, what are you going to pay Trey Hendrickson for? If Trey Hendrickson is on this team, they will have a bottom 5 defense in the NFL. If Trey Hendrickson is not on this team, they will have a bottom 5 defense in the NFL. Like, I feel this to my core that when you have a great player, you shouldn't let him walk, but your defense is going to suck either way. I'm surprised they didn't already do it, but man, if they do it, I understand the logic, Caroline.
I always am very fearful of using the term, it couldn't get worse, because it can always get worse. I am of the belief that when you re-sign the same players, you don't get better, but you stay the same. But if you don't re-sign your players, you can get worse. We just saw, statistically, the Bengals were 32nd of 32 teams in the NFL in several different defensive statistical ratings. It can always be worse. And I know it's crazy to think about this Bengals defense being worse than it was last year. It can. It absolutely can. So yes, I am with you that if the Bengals just run back everything that they did last season, they're still going to be bad. But it's better than being worse than what they were this past season. And I know I hear everybody saying, well, Trey Hendrickson isn't a great run stuffer. Isn't that what you drafted Shamar Stewart for? Because Trey Hendrickson gets after the quarterback, and that's what players at that position get paid for, to sack the quarterback. Shamar Stewart didn't do that in college, so now you have your sack specialist and you have your run-stopping specialist. Shamar Stewart's kind of a project at this point where he is in the NFL, but I see the gears turning, right? Like I see the thought process of why the Bengals will want to draft Shamar Stewart. But I said I'm not confident in Trey Hendrickson wearing a Bengals jersey. I am in Micah Parsons because it's not about money. Jerry Jones just likes to posture and to have control. It's never about the money. He's going to pay Micah Parsons whatever Micah Parsons wants to make, and then they'll run off into the sunset. I am not confident that the Bengals are willing to pay Trey Hendrickson what he wants because the Bengals are a notoriously cheap organization. But I think the Bengals have been moving fairly smart, at least when it comes to the extensions of Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, re-signing players that they need to re-sign in order to capitalize on Joe Burrow's prime. But the fact that we're having trade conversations show that maybe the Bengals aren't as smart as I thought they were. Because this is not an August conversation. A Trey Hendrickson trade is a March conversation. It's a pre-draft conversation. Because I don't believe there is a one-for-one trade out there that exists for Trey Hendrickson right now. There's no team in the National Football League that would be willing to part ways with a player that would be an equal value of Trey Hendrickson. If the Bengals didn't want to pay him, then they should have realized that in March and gotten picks that they could have used for the 2025 draft. If they trade Trey Hendrickson right now, what good are 2026 picks to the 2025 Cincinnati Bengals? So if all they're trying to do is just to save a couple of dollars and cents here and there, they'll get a couple of picks and they'll rebuild for 26, 27. Well, then you're just wasting precious years of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins prime. So none of this stuff makes sense to me, Fitz.
The only pushback I'd have to this is that if you're the Bengals, you're looking at it and say, man, he's going to be 31 this year, and he's under contract. So
he was going to be 31 this year in March.
Yeah, but my whole thing is that you're right. Maybe if I'm the Bengals, I'm not willing to invest extra money in him because he's 31. We're not going to have this defense rebuilt. By the time that we actually get the defense rebuilt, he's going to be on the wrong side of all of this, and we've spent too much money on something that doesn't work. I think all of that logic works, and I agree with you. They should have done this in March. But at the end of the day, he is under contract this year. So if they didn't get any value offer they liked in March, maybe they did look at it and say, well, worst case scenario, we've got him under contract this year. Let's just run it back. Because you're right, there isn't a comp 1-to-1 because of his age and the money that he wants. You'd have to be a team right now that's in Super Bowl now window. And if you are, you're not going to give up a comparable player because that takes you out of the very need that you're giving. So you're right. The only thing they're going to get are low draft picks because the only people I think that would be acquiring Trey Hendrickson today are Super Bowl contenders. So you're talking about a 28, 29, 30th pick in the draft. I agree. All of that doesn't help them. But there is a level where if I run the Bengals and I'm looking around and saying, I don't like any of the offers, even in March, we've got him under contract. Screw it. We're going to make him play. And if he refuses to play, that would be, when's the last time we saw a player hold out an entire season in this situation? A 30-year-old, going to be 31-year-old pass rusher holding out the entire season seems so wildly unlikely. The Bengals are sort of playing chicken with him. So, that's part of why I think we get this news that they're shopping him, simply because they're going to go back to him and say, hey, we didn't get anything for you that's worth anything, so you're going to have to play for the Bengals. Just like Myles Garrett said, I want to be traded. The Bengals are saying, we want to trade you. They're doing the same thing from the opposite angle. I don't think that there's any scenario where Trey Hendrickson isn't a Bengal. I also don't think the Bengals are going to give him another contract.
They don't have to. And I think we always need to remember that with a lot of these holdouts and hold-ins, they're under contract. Terry McLaurin is under contract in the 2025 season. Trey Hendrickson is under contract for the 2025 season. If they want to sit out the entire season and pay the fines, the multi-million-dollar fines that it would take to sit out the entire season, then fine, be my guest. That's dumb. Not a very smart financial decision, not a very smart football decision, because you are basically sending the message to the other 31 teams in the NFL that, hey, I care way more about making as much money as I possibly can than actually competing. And I will always tell players, hey, get your bag, get what you are worth, and fight for what you are worth. But that, I mean, sitting out the entire season would just be stupid. That would just not be smart in the slightest. I just fear that the Bengals care more about saving money than pushing all of their chips into the middle to capitalize on where they are right now, which is a Super Bowl window. You don't get better by eliminating the leading sacker in the NFL. And I understand that Trey Hendrickson, maybe we shouldn't put him in that same category as the TJ Watts, the Myles Garretts, so on and so forth. But he is still a really, really, really good, I don't think I would say elite, but I would say really, really, really good defensive player in this league. And when defense is your number one concern and you take away a really, really, really good defensive player, then what does that make you? Worse.
I agree with all of that. I think one thing we have to remember in this is the age portion of it. I don't disagree that this should have been done before the draft. There's an element for me where when I saw the Raiders give Max Crosby a big extension, look, the Raiders had a bottom 5 defense last year. They're going to have a bottom 5 defense again this year. But Max is 27. So you're paying Max because you're saying, you know what? We're going to have the time to build this defense in the next offseason. We'll still have Max in his prime. It works. Even the Browns, who I think have a particularly talented roster across the board other than the quarterback position, I think could talk themselves into, hey, we're right on the cusp of something. If we can get something out of one of these young quarterbacks, maybe we can do something. The age portion of Trey Hendrickson is what makes this difficult. I want the man to get everything he could possibly want. I also do understand that the Bengals have him under contract for $16 million and frankly can franchise him next year. So if you look at the Bengals, you're looking at it saying, hey, bud, like I know what you want, but people in hell want ice water. I can turn around, I can pay you $16 million and I can franchise you next year for whatever that's going to be, top 5 at the position, $30 million. Like if you're still performing at that level, by the time you hit the open market, you're going to be 33. And that's just a level of leverage that the Bengals have. They're using their leverage. As junky as that sounds, they're using their leverage. We'll continue to break down what happens with the Bengals throughout the course of the show, see if there's any big news. But in the meantime, we finally saw the debut of Caleb Williams in the Browns offense. First preseason start. We'll give you the takeaways next on Yahoo Sports Daily. That was a good outing for Caleb Williams and the Bears offense. If that's a preview of things to come, Williams and Ben Johnson are going to be just fine together. That's from the Yahoo Sports legend, Frank Schwab. You can tell because his Twitter account says @Yahoo Schwab. Ever the company man. We love Frank Schwab on this show. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Caleb got a couple of
Who
series.
doesn't love Frank Schwab? It's not just this show. I mean, America. He's America's sweetheart.
No, he is. There's nobody better to spend 3 days in Vegas in. Hint, hint, Yahoo. Send us to Vegas for 3 days with Frank. 6 of 10, 130 yards and a touchdown. Some of that 130 yards came from yak, which is the most disgusting sounding stat in the NFL. Yards after catch, but just yak.
But it's the most beautiful stat of all time. Sounds gross, but it's beautiful.
I know we got to talk with Caleb here, but just quick rant. I wish that the NFL would give me two things in stats. I wish that yak only went to the wide receiver, not to the quarterback, to give us a better true passing, or they came up with the separate true passing yards. And then I also wish that drops and tipped balls by wide receivers were kept as their stat, like errors in baseball. So it doesn't count for the quarterback at all. It doesn't count as an attempt, a completion, or an interception. And then let's start to better track who's actually responsible for that. Look, make me the czar, Roger Goodell. I'll continue to come in and try and help you.
I will add on to that not only should sack yards be a quarterback stat, we also need to start talking about sack yards for defensively as well. It's not all about quarterbacks up in here, okay? We got to give credit to the big men. Give credit to the guys with their hands in the dirt, please.
The Wednesday episode is just going to be Yahoo Sports Daily fixes stats in the NFL. It's going to be the most watched episode. And I'm kidding. It's not. But it might be. All right, Caroline. We saw Caleb 6 of 10, 130 and a touchdown. Ben Johnson's offense, first time we saw him, it was good. It was fine, right? Like I want to have some big, huge, glowing. It was fine.
It was good. Like, it was a good outing. And I think we also need to remember that even though the Chicago Bears kind of continue to be the butt of several jokes in the NFL and they were not a good football team last year, Caleb Williams was still good last year. He threw for 3,500 yards as a rookie. And I think that stat is made even more impressive given the fact that a Chicago Bears quarterback has never had a 4,000 plus yard season in its history, which is just wild. And Caleb Williams was just 500 yards short of that clip in his first season with the franchise. And look, my takeaway from last night was Chicago Bears fans have every reason to be optimistic and excited about this Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson marriage, because what we saw last night was exciting. It was offensive fireworks. Now, he was going up against the Buffalo Bills defensive backups. I think there was only one, maybe two starter between the Bills starting 22 that was out in the field last night. So he's going up against backups. Keep that in mind. Add that to the grain of salt that we always add whenever we talk about preseason games. But 6 of 10, 107, touchdown. He did what he needed to do. Caleb Williams went out there, had a couple explosive plays in one of the series that he played. It's exciting. We should be excited that all the hype that we've heard about from Ben Johnson as this offensive guru at least is paying dividends in one preseason game. That's what it was. One preseason game. It doesn't mean Caleb Williams is going to be league MVP. Doesn't mean he's not going to be league MVP. Doesn't mean that the Chicago Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that they're not going to win the Super Bowl. It just means so far, so good, and optimism should be had in Chicago. But we also need to temper our expectations and remind everybody it was one preseason game against the Bills backups. But still, exciting. So far, so good.
This is one of those moments where I think I've remained consistent, and I try to remain consistent through the preseason. If a player is absolute hot garbage and it just looks out of sync and out of whack and terrible, I think that's worth looking at and saying, ooh, do we have a little pause for concern? Outside of that, there's very little that moves me one way or the other for anybody in preseason because the concepts are so different and the offense is so different. And I get all of that. So I look at this and say, I want to be fair. If Caleb came out and was just awful in the game, we would be turning around saying, is there reason for concern, especially given the amount of practice footage we've seen where Caleb Williams looked inaccurate, right? Like, I understand it's been a frustrating summer for Bears fans that want to see this explosive moment right out of the gates. It's just a process. And I know I say this too much. I constantly yell at everybody about it. I'll continue to yell on this show because I believe it so much. We are not in the NFL. It's not usually an Ozempic society. You got to do little things right every single day. You can't just suddenly take a pill and all of a sudden your team's better. I think this is going to be a bit of a process for Caleb. Here's what I expect throughout the course of the season. I expect some really good games and then some head-scratching games until it normalizes into what it's going to be. And I still think it's easy to forget how much we thought of Caleb Williams coming out in the draft. Like, there's a reason he was the number 1 overall pick, even above Jaden Daniels. Like, there are college football people, draft people, scouts that genuinely believe, as hard as it is for us to remember, that Caleb Williams has more ability than Jaden Daniels. Like, I know Jaden took the world by storm, but again, systems matter. Like, Jaden had a brilliant Cliff Kingsbury and an offense that was built to just sort of to week by week give him more responsibility and more opportunity. I hope Caleb gets that now. And I hope Caleb comes out and is better than Jaden Daniels through all of it, because frankly, that's a great story for the city of Chicago that's never had that quarterback. Caleb threw, to your point, for 3,500 yards and I believe 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year. Most rookie quarterbacks that do that would get all sorts of praise. We did the opposite last year because the Bears were a disaster. I just want to slow our roll in getting too excited or too down through this process and understand that Ben Johnson is going to reteach a lot of things to Caleb. So I'll worry about what Caleb looks like week 6, week 7, week 8. Until then, they're all just tiny Legos trying to build a bigger castle.
I talked to Baker Mayfield last week, and you can find that interview on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page. It should be up shortly. And I asked him about, obviously he had a great rookie season in Cleveland. It kind of all went downhill from there. Then he was a backup, and now he's a franchise quarterback in Tampa. I asked him about just that trajectory, about his journey, about what changes. And he said, it's a lot of it is right place, right time. That right now in Tampa, it's the right place for him at the right time in his career. And I think that also you can apply that same logic to wrong place, wrong time, right place, wrong time, whatever it might be. And you can apply that logic to Baker Mayfield's time in Cleveland, that it was a revolving door at offensive coordinator, that things were constantly changing, that sometimes when you are drafted to be the man and you are not immediately the man or consistently the man, that sometimes that can weigh on you, especially on a young quarterback. So I think that we need to put that kind of logic and apply it to Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Now, they're not the same quarterback. I mean, they could have drastically different careers. I always want to be very cautious in comparing quarterbacks, but Jaden Daniels may have just been at the right place at the right time. That under Cliff Kingsbury, he was the perfect offensive coordinator to be able to continue to unlock the greatness and athleticism that is Jaden Daniels. The pieces around Jaden Daniels was just tailor-made for him to escalate a team that had really been in just, the pits of misery for so long. Whereas Caleb Williams was drafted into a situation with a head coach that can't control the clock and an offensive coordinator that has zero feel for the game. There were pieces there and weapons there. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze drafted in the same class as Caleb Williams, but the coaching staff was not in place to develop and foster a young quarterback. Now, Caleb Williams, it feels like, has that in Ben Johnson, who is an offensive guru. So you kind of reset the clock a little bit. That yes, it's year 2 for Caleb Williams, but it's year 1 for Caleb Williams in a Ben Johnson system. It's important to point out, though, Fitz, we don't have patience. We as a football society, we want immediate results. And in year 2, it doesn't matter if it's year 1 with a new coach. Caleb Williams is in year 2 in the NFL. Whether it's right or it's wrong, we are all, as a football society, going to expect Caleb Williams to take a massive leap forward in year 2. That no longer is there a Matt Eberflus there to throw the blame on. The blame will now go on Caleb Williams if things go south in Chicago. Is it fair? Of course not. But welcome to being a quarterback in the National Football League, especially when you're the number 1 overall pick.
Our number 2 for Yahoo Sports Daily coming up next. We've got a lot to get into, not the least of which is maybe the most dominant star in any sport. We'll break down Scottie Scheffler coming up for you. Hour number 2 is underway. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz, and got a lot to get into. It was a wild weekend in sports, Caroline. Let's start the hour like we start every hour. 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Wild weekend in sports in August. I just can't wait until how wild it's going to be when September and October and football season comes around. But we have some big time WNBA news because Sue Bird, WNBA legend, became the first ever W player in history to be honored with her very own statue. It was unveiled ahead of her former team, Seattle Storm's matchup with Phoenix Mercury on Sunday, right outside of Climate Pledge Arena, where the Seattle Storm play. She spent her entire 2-decade-long career with the Seattle Storm, which is crazy to think about spending that much time with one single team. She led Seattle to 4 WNBA championships, tying the most by any franchise. She also retired as the league's all-time leader in games, minutes played, assists, and a record 13 All-Star appearances. So very, very well-deserved recognition for Sue Bird. And I think it's a very good reminder that although Caitlin Clark has brought so many new eyes into the sport, and she will be credited with bringing the WNBA into this brand new stratosphere that it is in now, Caitlin Clark's excellence and Caitlin Clark's notoriety and Caitlin Clark's platform would not be possible without players like Sue Bird, like Candace Parker, like Maya Moore, like Diana Taurasi, like Lisa Leslie, like so many legends of the game themselves that have blazed this trail for the platforms of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham. All of these household name players now, none of what they are doing would be possible without what Sue Bird and so many other legends have done. So we'll tip my cap to an absolute legend of the game herself, who is now enshrined in sports and Seattle history with her very own statue, Fitzy.
I want to normalize sports statues. I just want to make them all like in Rome. I want to make them all like 20 feet tall. And I want to make a walkway that goes into every arena and every stadium where they're massive. So like every time, like if you're a Packers fan, you got a long walkway that you're going through that are all statues. If you're a Jags fan, it's a little bit quicker to get in. But I'm just saying 20-foot statues all the way across the world. And congratulations to Sue Bird. Absolutely deserving of that honor. All right. I'll give you a point that's on my mind. Cam Ward had his preseason effort over the weekend scrutinized by many people that only read the stat line. 2 of 7, 42 yards, 52 passer rating. I understand that looks terrible. I really do. But you know what looked terrible over the weekend? The Tennessee Titans. Now, most of you don't care about the Tennessee Titans, and I'll acknowledge that. But many of you care about Cam Ward. And the problem is we made these sweeping generalizations going into the NFL draft that this year's quarterback class was not as good as last year's quarterback class, which obviously looked to be true and may absolutely pan out to be the case. But that doesn't mean that Cam Ward suddenly can't play the position or that he wasn't the appropriate pick at the number 1 overall selection for the Tennessee Titans. We've told you on this show already that I don't think I've ever seen a more forgotten first overall pick in the draft, especially at the quarterback position in history, than Cam Ward. And this 2 of 7 stat line is only going to continue to fuel a narrative by people that, frankly, didn't watch the game. A couple of drops here made a big difference in this game, including one of the prettiest passes we've seen all preseason from him that was a bomb that should have been caught, and Van Jefferson just forgot how to play football, right? This is going to happen all year to Cam Ward, though, because I do not believe that the Tennessee Titans are equipped to give their young quarterback the opportunity to succeed. So unfortunately, when we read the stats and when we see the line, the easy popular narrative is going to be, yep, told you these quarterbacks suck and Cam's not going to be any good. Please, God, press pause on that. And if you can, take the time to actually watch it. I think what you'll find out is that Cam Ward has an opportunity to be a very good and capable quarterback in this league. I just don't know that I trust Callahan or the Titans to take advantage of it. I've said it loudly. I've said it before. I will say it again. I believe there's a real chance that Callahan is the first coach fired this season in the NFL. And frankly, all of that is going to be because we will realize quickly this team is not positioned to take advantage of the number 1 overall pick. They were the worst team in football last year. I'm not sure they won't be the worst team in football again this year, but I do believe that we need to press pause on the narrative that Cam Ward can't play. All right, Caroline, that brings us to our top point. Oh, do you want to chime in on Cam real quick? Sorry.
No, just, hey, if you said, Caroline, you have to bet $1 million, yes or no, just flat out, yes or no, will Cam Ward be successful in the National Football League? I would have to right now today say no. And that has very, very, very little, like maybe 0.01% to do with Cam Ward himself and everything to do with the Tennessee Titans. That feels like it's a cultureless, identity-less kind of franchise where it is right now, because I don't think that the Tennessee Titans have the infrastructure in place to develop a young quarterback, to even be average, much less great.
And it seems to be a theme for the show. Systems matter. Systems don't need to even come into the conversation on Scottie Scheffler, who went out this weekend and absolutely dominated. The Sunday conversation was everywhere for him. 4-stroke deficit he came back from. He wins the BMW championship, and through that process, just again wins the hearts of everyone because he is dominating at a level that, frankly, we haven't seen in a very long time. I said in hour one, let's avoid the Tiger comparisons. So I'm trying not to even evoke his name, but realistically, social media blew up about Scottie over the course of the weekend. Every star was tweeting about it. Why? Because it was a dominant performance. And it really raises the question, is anyone in all of sports dominating more than Scottie Scheffler is right now? Patrick Mahomes out there, Scottie's crazy, man. Is Scottie Scheffler the most dominant athlete right now in sports? And Caroline, I don't think golf fans are going to like what either of us have to say right now. I'm just pause your mentions because golf fans, it's about to get ugly.
I'm just going to throw out a preemptive apology to golf fans everywhere, because when we talk about the greatest athletes, I'm really hard pressed to throw a golfer in that conversation. That is not diminishing anything that golfers do. I understand it is a grind. I understand getting to the point where you're playing in the PGA Tour is incredibly difficult. But I came up with my 3 most dominant athletes right now, and Scottie Scheffler is not in that conversation. If we're going to talk about my list of the 3 most dominant athletes today, it starts with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, how can it not? And this is not most dominant athletes of all time. That is a much different conversation, and I don't think that I could narrow it down to 3. But if we're talking right now, Patrick Mahomes. If we're going to talk about those dominant athlete in the NFL, I don't think that you can have anyone else in the conversation that isn't Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he single-handedly has elevated this Chiefs team into a consistent Super Bowl contender, so it has to be Patrick Mahomes. Also, Caitlin Clark. Look, I understand she's hurt right now, and she's been hurt for majority of the 2025 season, but still what she has done for the WNBA. She has brought the WNBA from a league that, I'm not going to say single-handedly, because she has not done it single-handedly, but she has been at the top of the list of reasons why the WNBA went from a league that doesn't generate a profit to now a league that is absolutely thriving, and very smart, very wealthy business people all across the country want a piece of the WNBA because of the greatness of Caitlin Clark and what she has done for this league. So ability combined with impact, Caitlin Clark has to be in that conversation. And we're bringing it home. If we're talking about the most dominant athletes and we're talking about people who have never done certain things that these athletes are doing, looking at Shohei Ohtani, the one, the only, doing things that haven't been done since Babe Ruth did it way, way, way back in the day. He's an elite pitcher. He's elite at the plate. Shohei Ohtani is must-watch television. Now, he needs to probably stay out of these multi-million-dollar lawsuits because, if we had a dime for every time Shohei Ohtani was sued for millions of dollars, we would have 2 dimes, which is not that many dimes, but it's still crazy that it happened twice. But still, all of that aside, legal issues aside, Shohei Ohtani, it is a privilege to watch what he does. He is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. So I apologize to Scottie Scheffler. If we're talking about athletes and we're talking about impact, Scottie Scheffler just can't scratch the top 3 for me, as great and as wonderful and as dominant as he is.
You're being too kind, Caroline. And I really appreciate the fact that
he is dominant. He is great.
Yeah, he's dominant, but he's not one of the top 10 most dominant athletes right now. And if we're talking
athlete, like Derrick Henry is a better athlete than Scottie Scheffler, right? Micah Parsons is a better athlete than Scottie Scheffler. I think we need to distinguish athlete versus accomplishments.
Right. Like 2 things can be true. You can be the most dominant person in your sport, but not necessarily be a top 10 athlete. I mean, look at how many players of other sports, superstars, after they retire, go on and they just try and become a scratch golfer. And, many of them have some success. It's not Scottie Scheffler like success, but imagine if you took most of those athletes we're talking about and you put a golf club in their hand when they're 4 years old and you say, hey, the only thing you're going to do for your entire life is train to be a golfer. I genuinely believe that most NBA players that are out here playing golf all the time, quarterbacks, kickers, punters, like all these people that play a lot of golf and they're also already very good, that person, if they never focus on anything else, is going to turn out to be a great golfer. Do I believe that if we put a basketball in Scottie Scheffler's hands when he was 4 years old, that he'd be in the NBA? Or if we put a football in his hands when he was 4 years old, would he be playing in the NFL? No. I mean, I don't think this is a hot take. Golf, this isn't about love or hate golf or any of that. This is just about the fact that as an athlete, while I genuinely respect so much of what Scottie Scheffler has done, which is what we all say before we're going to say something disrespectful, putting him in the list of top 10 athletes, my God, what's required athletically of any of the superstars of soccer far exceeds what's required athletically. And we haven't even talked about big guys on skates. The thought of going around and just being able to just cream somebody and then spin around, take a puck and score while you're on itty bitty skates. That's just a different level of athleticism. I don't even think that's a hot take. Scottie Scheffler is a great golfer. End point. Scottie Scheffler is not a top 10 elite athlete in any major sport right now. End point.
I think you have to say he's a top 10 most dominant athlete.
He's the
we're
top
talking
10
best
most
athletes.
But
there's
that
a
has
long
everything
list
to
of
do
better
with
athletes before we get to, let's say Peyton Manning. It's not like he was an elite athlete in his day. I mean, I look at Lamar Jackson, an elite athlete, the athleticism that it takes to do what a lot of these football, baseball, basketball players, you don't have to be the best in your sport to be the most athletic. Scottie Scheffler, if you just saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't be like, wow, that guy's made hundreds of millions of dollars doing sports, because he doesn't look athletic.
I'm going to have to get out, close social media today after I say this. If we saw the most dominant bowler in modern history, would we turn around and have a conversation about that person's the most dominant athlete in his sport? It deserved I don't know how to couch this. And now this is where golfers will absolutely cremate me for comparing golf to bowling. All right. But if you are the most dominant person in your sport, I just don't know how to couch that, because I'll throw my three most dominant athletes up today. By the way, you took Mahomes, and I think that's a really smart thing. I will couch that. But my three most dominant athletes today, I put Jokic on the list. When you are a 3-time MVP, should have been a 4-time MVP, but voters just got tired of it. When nobody can figure out how to do it. And I know NBA players will sit there and they even scoff because he doesn't look like an athlete. But if we're talking just, my God, dominance, Jokic, how much more can you do? He's revolutionizes the position, does everything you need to do. Again, 3-time, should have been 4-time MVP. Keeping that list. Lamar Jackson, Frank Schwab, we were mentioning earlier, continues to say that he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore as one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. He's the youngest person to ever be a 2-time MVP. And again, could have been a 3-time. Could have been a 3-time. So you just talk about physical performance. And this is, and then Connor McDavid, I will take the NHL superstar. I mentioned big guys on itty-bitty skates. Just the athleticism required. Now, for all of these gentlemen, we could sit here and have a championship conversation, because Jokic obviously has won, but it has been difficult for everybody else. We're not talking about championships because they're in team sports. So if we're talking about individual athletic dominance in a team sport, if your team doesn't win the championship, that ain't on you. You can be, this is why I hate the fact that we sit here and have these conversations in team sports about who's won the most of this or that. Okay, it doesn't really matter to me that the Ravens haven't won a Super Bowl if we're talking about the dominance week in and week out of Lamar Jackson. And that's the crux of the conversation. But to your point, if I had to, if we were just walking up and saying, hey, it's an athletic draft, we're going to walk up like dodgeball. It doesn't matter what the sport is. It's just an athletic. You're up here and we've got all the best athletes in the world, and they're all standing up in a line, and you're like, hey, we're doing an athlete draft. Like we were in elementary school, and you're going through the list. How many NFL players would we have to get down? How many NBA players would we have to get through before anybody in this mock draft is looking and saying, I'll take Scottie Scheffler over in the corner, bring Scottie in. I don't think that exists when you watch the combine and you see offensive linemen that are the size of you, me, and our producer combined that are running 40-yard dashes in 4.6 seconds. Like, that's a level of athleticism Scottie Scheffler and his entire, like, if you ask Scottie to put his golf bag on his shoulders and then run a 40-yard dash, he's still less in size with all of that than these offensive linemen, and he's going to do it in double the time that any of those guys do. The level of athleticism required for golf just simply doesn't hang with many other major sports.
I think this is an unfair comparison, though. I think it is totally and completely unfair to compare a golfer to an NFL athlete, like to an offensive lineman, to a running back, to a wide receiver, to, whatever it might be. Those are like, nobody is saying that Scottie Scheffler is more athletic than Jordan Mailata. Like, if you're trying to make that comparison, like, you're fighting a losing fight. I think that we just, just look at the sports. Like would Derrick Henry be winning as many PGA championships as Scottie Scheffler? No, but that doesn't make Derrick Henry any less great at what he does. He is a fantastic running back. He should probably be in Canton one day. Scottie Scheffler can't do what he does, and he can't do what Scottie Scheffler does. Like, we can't compare athleticism, because I think athleticism is very subjective. Like, what you want to call someone athletic or the most athletic person, because then these debates start to get diluted with, okay, cultural impact and championships and so on and so forth. You just want to compare pure athleticism. No, Scottie Scheffler is probably not more athletic than any player on any practice squad in the National Football League. That doesn't mean that what he's doing isn't great, that what he is doing, and continues to do. He's only 29 years old. Like, he's got a lot of career left. I think that we can all hope that we get to watch Scottie Scheffler for years and years to come. So I think that this is an unfair comparison. Athletes versus championships and accomplishments, because what Scottie Scheffler has achieved and continues to achieve and probably will continue to achieve is great in and of itself. It doesn't have to be greater than what Jokic is doing in the NBA for us to not appreciate it.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I believe that there's tremendous credit. I just think if we say who's the most dominant athlete, unfortunately, the usage of the word athlete then opens up a wide range. Like Ma Long, nobody here has ever heard of Ma Long, but Ma Long, widely considered the most dominant table tennis player of all time, won the unique double grand slam, holding records for the most Olympic gold medals and consecutive world
championships.
championships.
Golf is not table tennis, Fitz. Golf is not ping pong.
Look, I mean, when you watch what Olympic ping pong players do, like when you watch the speed and the reactions, look, Pete Weber, bowler. Apparently, Pete Weber. We've got
who do you think you are? I am.
I mean, Pete Weber. Look at that. See, Pete Weber, most dominant athlete in this sport. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Is that wrong? Is that wrong to say? And frankly, I do not know enough about professional bowling to say whether he is or isn't. But let's live in the world where he is. He's the most dominant athlete in his respective sport. That doesn't mean he's more athletic than Patrick Mahomes. It just means that he's the best in his sport. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. And there are certain sports that get more, investment and more eyeballs than others. It doesn't make you better or worse.
Right. Yes, I think there's a tremendous qualifier to being the most dominant athlete in sports, for sure. And if anyone saw the New Heights podcast, it was interesting because Taylor Swift, it was Travis Kelce that said Taylor Swift is an athlete because of the amount of energy, work, and everything that she puts out on stage. And it raises an interesting. They didn't like that at all. She was the one that deferred it and was like, hey, I can't do anything athletic, but she does spend hours and hours and hours training to be able to be in shape, to be able to do something that most people cannot do. Like, where do we draw the line? I'm not sure that I would say that Taylor Swift is any less of an athlete than Scottie Scheffler. I'm just, it's not going to be a popular take, and I'm sorry,
that
but
I would not a popular take. We need to, as a sports society, stop gatekeeping the word athlete. It's the same thing of like, cheerleaders aren't athletes. Cheerleading's not a sport. Why do you care so much? Okay. Like they try out, they train, they practice, they do they invest in their craft just like any other athlete invests in their craft. Can't we just let people be really good at what they do without comparing them to somebody that does something completely different just because it falls under the umbrella of sports?
I don't disagree with any of that. Cheerleaders are athletes, so like
Yes.
we can lump them all in. And I think in a athlete draft, there are some cheerleaders that might get picked ahead of Scottie Scheffler. I don't know. I'm just saying that. All right,
What is
now
your
that
beef with Scottie Scheffler? Scottie Scheffler keeps
Nothing.
getting these strays.
I think Scottie's great, and I think what he's doing is absolutely amazing. Yes, it's absolutely incredible to watch. It is absolutely incredible to watch. Just like Pete Weber's incredible to watch in bowling. That's all. It's just like Pete Weber is incredible to watch in bowling. Okay, now that we have I particularly have just absolutely irritated every golf fan in the world. I'm sorry.
Degraded golf.
I've spent the last 15 minutes yucking everyone's yum. Let's talk about something that's far less controversial. College football playoff expansion. Nobody's going to be upset about that. Big news over the weekend for the Big Ten. Is college football playoff expansion coming in the worst way possible? We'll answer it next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Multiple 20-plus team CFP models are under discussion, deriving from the Big Ten, sources tell Yahoo Sports. As ESPN reported, they feature as many as 7 automatic qualifiers for each SEC Big Ten school, 5 ACC Big 12, 2 group of 6, and 2 at-large. Discussions are very early, but they could trigger conference title game eliminations. That is the tweet from our own Ross Dellinger. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We've covered college football for a long time. Caroline, you and I together have covered college football for a long time. This college football playoff expansion moment does not surprise me. It is a staggering statement to see it this loud, but the more we continue to hear from the Big Ten about what they want, the more we're going to have all eyes on the Big Ten and the SEC. And whatever the middle ground looks like, it feels like college football playoff expansion is just going to continue to rule the conversation.
I hate it. I absolutely despise it. It doesn't make any sense. And frankly, I think it's incredibly stupid. More is not always a good thing. Now, look, I was against playoff expansion from 4 to 12, but now that we have 12, I kind of liked it, right? Like, it was fun. I liked that we had more games that mattered. I liked that we were able to open the field, because let's just apply the same rankings to this past season, the 2024 season, as it would have in a 14 playoff. Well, if we had a 14 playoff in 2024, Ohio State wouldn't have even been in the playoff. So I like that we live in a world where teams can have one flub on the resume and still get into the dance, because I think that teams should be allowed to get better over time. But I think we need to understand that there's still some intricacies of the playoff right now in a 12-team playoff that could be worked out, that could be ironed out. Why don't we work on 12 before we go to 16? And why don't we maybe live in a world with 12 or 16 before we expand to 20 plus? Because I think that you're going to a very dangerous territory for a couple of reasons. One, the more playoff games you have, well, the more weekends where you're playing football. There's a little thing, Fitz, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is really big and really important and trumps every single event probably in the world, especially in sports. Does college football really want to start living in a world where they have playoff games the same weekends as NFL playoff games? Does college football and the College Football Playoff Committee and ESPN and all of these college football rights holders want to start going up against something called the Super Bowl? I wouldn't, because I am of the belief that anytime you go up against the NFL, you lose in a court of law, and especially when ratings are concerned. So the more playoff games you add, the more and more it gets extended into the NFL playoff schedule. Also, I am of the belief that the playoffs should mean something, right? That it is an achievement when you make the postseason. The more and more you expand the field, the more and more you dilute what it means to make said playoff field. So the Big Ten is trying so hard for the middle class of the Big Ten, the Nebraskas, the Iowas, the Minnesotas, to be relevant so badly, but they don't even realize that when they try to make their middle class relevant, they dilute the exact product that they are trying so hard to be part of. So I hate this. I would like to walk before we run. I would like to do 12 before we do 16, and I'd surely like to do 16 before we do 20. And I am just asking the Big Ten this. Stop trying to make fetch happen. Okay? Stop trying to make things happen that nobody else wants. Nobody wants an automatic qualifier model. Not the SEC, not the ACC, not the Big 12. And I don't know of any other conference or fan that wants an expanded playoff field to 20 plus. I mean, at some point, you're just the NCAA basketball tournament with 64 teams. At some point, let's just screw the regular season. Let's just have everything be a playoff, and everybody's invited into the playoff. Where does it end, Fitz? Where does it end?
So I'm not as diametrically opposed to it as you are. I think a couple of things, though. Number one, we got to come up with what it's going to be and let it live. So what I don't want to do is try 12 for a few years, then try 16 for a few years, then try 20 for a few years. Like that just all feels, I want college football to come up with one decision and then sign like a 10-year agreement on it where, hey, we're going to do this for the next decade, because it's the change right now that I think feels jarring to all of us. That is such a part of this that you're right. We don't even appreciate the 12 we have now, because the conversation immediately is about, well, what about 16? I don't want the college football landscape to look like the NBA, where we're so busy talking about the future that we don't talk about what we're seeing right now. That is bad for the sport. That being said, I do think that at some point we just got to look at it and say, okay, what's the amount that makes everybody happy, and how do we make sure it works? Because this is all about not being irrelevant. Like, and money is a huge part of it, but relevance is also, because all of these automatic qualifying situations are the Big Ten, to me, running scared and telling the world what we already know, that if they don't ensure automatic bids for the Big Ten, there are going to be years where several Big Ten teams don't get in. And all of a sudden, these middle of the road Big Ten teams are going to feel like they are part of the forgotten culture of college football. Like, I'm old enough to remember when Nebraska mattered, because Nebraska was on TV every week and nobody else was. Like, when I was a kid, that was real. Now we have this society where you can watch every game every single Saturday. If you're a UNLV fan, the games are still on, right? So all of a sudden it's harder for teams to just separate because of who they are. Now, if you are the middle of the Big Ten, you mentioned the Minnesotas, I'll say the Michigan States, if you're the Nebraskas, if you're the Wisconsins, if you're just stuck in the middle of the Big Ten and you don't guarantee yourself an automatic bid, you take the risk that the committee, more years than not, simply going to leave you out of this process. And if they leave you out of this process, now you got all these teams and nobody gives a damn about them. I'm concerned about the future of the meaningfulness of UCLA and USC if we don't get them some automatic bid way. Now, it feels soft to then say, well, we got to give automatic bids. Otherwise, all these teams are going to be forgotten. But I think what we have to understand is this is in part about making sure they get money. And this is in part, the Big Ten admitting what everybody knows. They're scared that the middle of the conference is simply going to be forgotten without guaranteeing themselves a bid. To me, any conference that tells you they need guaranteed bids week in and week, or year in and year out, any conference that tells you they need guaranteed bids is telling you, honestly, they're scared without an automatic qualifier that they'll simply be left out of this process. I don't like college football running scared.
And I think that Tony Petitti is trying so hard to justify to NBC and CBS and the rights holders that have games for the Big Ten that paid, $1 billion for the rights to these games, is trying to justify their purchase. Because right now, the second and third best Big Ten games of the week are what? Iowa, Michigan State. That doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and I'll throw USC in there just given the brand. But outside of those teams, what are big time brands? What are big time matchups that aren't the marquee matchups of the week that are going to go to Big Noon Kickoff, that are going to go to Fox? I mean, more often than not, the second and third best games in the Big Ten are underwhelming games. Now, look, I have an LSU helmet behind me. I acknowledge that I come from an SEC space, that I host on SEC radio. Sure, I come from an SEC world. But the second and third best games in the SEC on any given week are significantly better at times than sometimes the best game in the Big Ten. So ESPN's sitting back and looking pretty and saying, hey, we're paying less for better games. Whereas Fox and CBS and NBC and the rights holders for the Big Ten are probably saying, what the hell are we paying for? So Tony Petitti might want to expand the field to justify to some of these media rights holders what they are paying for, when in reality, in my opinion, it really only dilutes the product. Now, every single tweet that we've seen come up here and report that we've seen, whether it's from Ross or Matt Fortuna that we're seeing right here, it's saying it's very early. It's very early. It's early beginnings, and this could be squashed, so on and so forth. What I have learned in college football with all of these changes of conference realignment and NIL and transfer portal changes, so on and so forth, whenever these things come out, it's usually because it's a lot further along in the process than we realize. We started to hear rumblings in 2021 of Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 and joining the SEC. Everyone said, it's early. This is just something that might happen. Boom. All of a sudden, Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC. We're hearing rumblings that USC and UCLA might leave the Pac-12. Then boom, bam, it's happening, and they're members of the Big Ten. So maybe these discussions are much further along in the process than we realize, and I think that's a bad thing for college sports. I think that college football is heading down a very, very rocky path of prioritizing paydays over what's actually good for the sport. Because sure, more playoff games means more money, more inventory in playoff games. But what does that really mean for the future of this sport?
We have worked together enough. Oftentimes I've been called a Big Ten apologist. I cannot believe that, but my want to make the Big Ten relevant
for no reason.
I just don't want the SEC
no
to
ties
run
to
all
the
of
Big
college
Ten.
football. No, none. I just don't want the SEC to have it all. I want the Big Ten to have some too. I think it's good for the sport the more national it is. So I want that. I want a college football playoff system, though, that gives every team a fair shot coming into the season. I want a college football playoff system. I don't frankly care if they go to 24. I just want the 24 best teams. And I don't care if one year that means 15 of them are for one conference. But what we see out of all of this is that conferences now are scared to death that we're simply going to forget about their middle class, which is exactly, by the way, what will happen if the playoff is expanded and there aren't automatic bids. Because if we live in a society where Michigan State doesn't make the playoffs for 6 or 7 years because there's no automatic bid, people will simply forget that Michigan State exists. And what we're seeing right now is that the conferences have looked around and they've figured out, hey, we're going to be left behind. I want the Big Ten to get a great proposal in. The end of the day, I will always die on the hill. I want the best teams to make the playoffs. Yeah. Well,
if you need the field to be expanded for you to get in, that's a bigger problem for you than it is the college football playoff. South Carolina just narrowly missed the college football playoff last year. South Carolina is not a power in college sports. Indiana made the playoff. SMU made the playoff. Boise State made the playoff because they earned their way into the playoff. If Michigan State can't get in, then that's a Michigan State problem, not a playoff problem.
Boise State and SMU, if there weren't automatic bids, we can have some conversations about the way all of that would. The college football debate will continue to rage on through the playoffs. There is no perfect solution, although Caroline and I should be the ones that are responsible with coming up with it. Be sure to check out our buddy Josh Pate, too. He'll cover this a lot on Yahoo Sports on his show. Always does a great job with college football. In the meantime, New York football took the entire world by storm. Darting up the depth chart? We'll figure that out next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Malik Neighbors is dealing with a minor back problem, per Jordan Ronan. Neighbors hasn't practiced in 11 days and is being characterized as, quote, normal camp tightness. That's from Yahoo's Fantasy Sports. Obviously, that has Giants fans a little bit panicked. But if we're being honest, even though Malik Neighbors hasn't been out there, it hasn't stopped Giants fans from getting all sorts of hope because Jaxson Dart has darted through the minds of everybody. He's just darting up the depth chart. We could do this all day, Caroline Fenton. Jaxson Dart has looked really good. A Darty Party is good. Can we coin that? Is that a thing for the show? We're going to coin the Darty Party. Are we buying Jaxson Dart right now?
Absolutely. I'm buying Jaxson Dart right now, and I'm buying Jaxson Dart as he is progressing the way that the Giants want him to slowly come along. What I am not doing is overreacting to two preseason games and saying that now all of a sudden Jaxson Dart should be the Giants starter week 1. I am not doing that. I know some Giants fans are doing that, but I have to give Brian Daboll a whole lot of credit. Because there could have been a possibility where the narrative starts to become Jaxson Dart should be the starter. If, Brian Daboll said something to leave a little bit of wiggle room for interpretation there, but he didn't. And every single press conference and media availability that Brian Daboll has done, he has said, Russ is our starter. We're really excited about what we saw from Jaxson Dart. So there's really no room for interpretation there. I think there's a lot to be excited about with Jaxson Dart, right? His stat line against the Jets on what day was that? Saturday, 14 of 16, 137 yards and a touchdown. He took one sack, did not turn the ball over. There's a lot of reason for excitement and anticipation for what Jaxson Dart can become. I also think the Giants are doing a really good job of putting him in a system that he is comfortable with, using a lot of the same looks that he had in Lane Kiffin's offense in college. So I think they're bringing him along the right way. There's a lot of reason for optimism, that there's not a whole lot of reason for optimism with the New York Giants franchise over the last couple of years. But now I'm saying Giants fans can be excited. It's a really, new feeling, an exciting feeling probably for Giants fans. But yeah, I'm drinking the Dart Kool-Aid.
So it's funny because when we first started the show, I mentioned to you at the time that I believe the Giants should start Jaxson Dart from day one, because it's really the only thing that they have to hope for this year is the development of Jaxson Dart. Caroline, I think Jaxson Dart has been even better than I expected, and I think he has a real opportunity to shine in New York long term. I want to say that loudly. I also have changed my mind. I don't think he should start week 1 anymore. And it's not because he hasn't looked great. It's because Russ, who I particularly think is washed, I don't think Russ has anything left in the tank. And Russ has looked really good. Like, I don't understand, if Russ was at the top of the depth chart, what else you'd need to see from Russ through this process. Jaxson Dart has looked really good, but so has Russ. And there is in my mind, there's no downside to playing Russ until you don't want to play Russ anymore. Continue to develop Jaxson. I think it's much tougher to start Jaxson Dart week 1, then bench him, and then, well, it's just not going well. We're going to let him sit and learn the Bryce Young, right? And then Russ comes in, and then maybe Jackson's back. Now you have a quarterback controversy. The worst thing you ever want is a back and forth. You don't want a teeter-totter or a seesaw at the quarterback position in New York or anywhere. So because Russ has actually looked good in the preseason, like Jaxson Dart has exceeded all my expectations, and I wanted him to start week 1, but Russ has looked good enough that now I'm stepping back and saying, no, have your cake and eat it too. Do all of these things at once. Play Russ, and if it doesn't work with Russ, then you put Jaxson in. But obviously the time they're spending on task with Jaxson Dart is working, and the development of Jaxson so far is working, and Jaxson is playing really well. So if I'm a Giants fan, I'm excited because I still believe this defense has a chance to be really good. And now all of a sudden I'm saying, hey, we might actually have short-term, long-term at the quarterback position in a way we're comfortable with. That is the ultimate win-win for this organization.
And the Giants may just have a good enough defense, which I frankly very much so believe that they're going to have. They invested so much defensively that if the Giants can start to win games and put wins together, they are winning 13-10, right? Like, I think the defense is going to be able to hold teams to 2 touchdowns, 14 points and some change. That if Russell Wilson can just do enough to let the defense win them games, who's to say that the Giants can't be a team that, what's their over-under win total? Does anybody know off the top of their heads? Probably not very high, probably 4.5, probably 5.5.
I think it was 6.5 last time I looked, but I could be wrong.
Who's to say that they can't be an 8-9 football team? Now, I'm not going to say that the Giants are now all of a sudden Super Bowl contenders because their defense is so good. Russell Wilson has looked so good in the preseason. No, I'm not saying that. But who is to say that the Giants can't win a couple of these games that they're not expected to win? And looking at their schedule is an absolute gauntlet. So maybe the Giants are going to end up being a much better team than their record indicates because they have such a difficult schedule. But still, I think, you say that what Giants fans have to look forward to, really the only thing they have to look forward to is the development of Jaxson Dart. Well, then hold on to that. Foster that. The development of Jaxson Dart is what people can be excited about. What's the point of rushing him and potentially halting or stalling his development by starting him week 1 against I don't have their schedule pulled up in front of me. Let me pull up their schedule right now, actually.
5.5, by the way. 5.5 is their win total. The guy in my ears told me 5.5 is their win total.
I mean, who's to say they can't win 6 games? I mean, I would take the over on that just based off of what we've seen. But what's the point of throwing Jaxson Dart in there at Washington and then at Dallas and then at home against Kansas City, at home against the Chargers, at New Orleans, which I understand the Saints are a bad team, but they get them on the road and the Superdome is a really difficult place to play. And then at home against the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, and then to Denver, and then to Philly, and then at home against San Francisco. You see my point here. It is a grind of a schedule in the beginning. What's the point of throwing Jaxson Dart out there maybe before he's fully cooked, when you can sit him on the bench? Russ can maybe win you a couple of games here and there, and the vibes can remain high in New York.
Yeah, they're
vibes
dating.
are very
they
high
don't
in
need
New
to
York.
get married yet. They don't need to get
they're
married
dating.
yet. Different vibes for the Jets. Justin Fields came out, and I'm going to be polite here, struggled. And I think that's polite to Justin Fields. So what?
He was
stinky. Justin Fields, are we panicked for the Jets yet? Stinky Fields?
I mean, I've been panicked for the Jets. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been steady panicked for the Jets, I think, ever since I can really remember, Fitz. So this is really nothing new. Yeah, I mean, I was concerned about the Jets before preseason, and I'm concerned about the Jets now. You look at Justin Fields' stat line, 1 for 5 for 4 yards. He completed his first pass attempt, I believe is that 4-yard pass, and then went 0 for 4 on his next pass attempts. I mean, I'm not saying that Justin Fields is going to be terrible forever. Like maybe they're trying new things and he's, kind of ironing out some of those kinks in the preseason, and you want to get those kinks ironed out in the preseason so you can be a more ready, tailor-made product once week 1 comes around. But I didn't have high hopes for Justin Fields to begin with. I didn't believe that Justin Fields was a certified starting quarterback in the National Football League when he was acquired by the New York Jets. And you also have a defensive-minded head coach. That's not always a great pair for a young quarterback who is trying to find a renaissance in his career. So yeah, I'm panicked for the Jets, and it kind of feels like over the last few years, the New York Jets is where quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah, I just, Jets suck. I'm sorry, Jets fans. It's just going to be another tough year. I don't believe in the quarterback position at all. And, we'll see. The one benefit of the doubt we can give Justin Fields is that maybe they're not doing much in the preseason that actually speaks to what he's good at doing. So maybe we'll see something different in the first few weeks. I do want to make sure we get some breaking news in here. Adam Schefter has gotten us this. I'm sorry. Before we do that, Ben Fox came in. Super Bowl 60 wager from a New York bettor at Caesars. $3,000 on the Jets to win the Super Bowl. Bet would win $6,000. Jets haven't made $600,000. Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2011. The real breaking news here is somebody had $3,000 they just wanted to throw away, Caroline. That's the real break. Like, congratulations to having, you just walked in and you're like, I'm just going to toss $3,000 cash out.
I am such a pessimistic sports fan. I acknowledge that about myself. I don't love that about myself, but I'm so pessimistic when it comes to my teams. But I can't even imagine being so optimistic about your team when your team is the New York Jets that you'd be willing to put that much money on it. Like, I get it. I'm pessimistic. I don't like that about myself. I'm glass half empty when it comes to my own teams. But man, maybe that's a level of optimism I don't even want to have.
I think we just realized that Greeny had $3,000 sitting around in cash. You got to be a rich Jets fan. Okay, now we'll get some breaking news in that you need to know from Adam Schefter as Isaiah Bond has signed. Mary Kay Cabot here. Bond's deal. Isaiah Bond from Texas has signed with the Cleveland Browns. As first reported here, a fully guaranteed 3-year deal worth $3.018 million. More consistent with the third pick he was projected to be than an undrafted free agent. A reminder, Bond was arrested on a sexual assault charge 2 weeks before the draft. Details were scarce at the time. Those charges have since been dropped, so he has now signed a fully guaranteed $3 million contract and will attempt to play for the Cleveland Browns. All right, let's get into some scrolling. We're going to take you around some of the best moments you might have missed from social media and some news you need to know. Look at Skinny Luka. A little bit of concern for Lakers fans for a second. We'll tell you about it next.
Tiešām tāda neveiksmīga sadursme. Mareks Turcīnās ar divus noliek gar zemi.
Dončić kalibojot ir piecēlēs kā.
That is a scary news from over the weekend. Slovenia's Eurobasket exhibition. Luka left the game, didn't return, but Lakers fans, you can collectively sigh, big sigh of relief. It's okay. It's believed he hasn't suffered anything serious. Just a knee contusion is what it's being labeled. So injured there, obviously, but just a knee contusion. So hopefully that means nothing for Luka, obviously, moving forward, and he'll be just fine, especially skinny Luka. So that video, not so much fun, but we're going to have some fun now. Let's go scrolling with my homies. They keep me scrolling, however we want to do that. All the scrolling, because according to my timeline, European basketball provided some absolute gems for us over the weekend. So let's take a look at some of them. Caroline, Fenton, Giannis. Let's start with Giannis, getting out here with his Greece teammate, having a little bit of fun. This is some of the moments here coming out. There we go.
Oh man, just, to the back of the head. And I would love to give a shout out to his Greek teammate. However, I am not even going to attempt to butcher that last name. But yeah, I mean, if I just saw this out of context tweets, probably the theme of the day as we're talking about Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, I would probably think, man, like, what did this guy do to Giannis? Like, why is Giannis being so, like mean? Apparently, this is like his long-term friend. It was a playful kind of thing. So not going to read too much into that one, but that is quite the slap.
Yeah,
wow.
It is, by the way. You're right.
Jeez.
It is long-term friend. This is something they do. But also, if my long-term friend slapped me like that, we wouldn't be long-term friends. I'm just saying. But, he's Giannis. Let's get
Giannis
to
slap
what
has
Jokic...
got to be, just a deliverance of the gods. Like, that's a large man and a really large arm, a really large hand.
And Jokic, by the way, out there doing some crazy things. Look at this. Boom. Just all of a sudden making it look easy. Again, dominant, maybe the most dominant athlete in his sport. Just bringing that one back. Jokic. Look at that. Look at the just
Jokic.
The move.
Just how lucky are we, Fitz, that in our lifetimes we have seen so many basketball players, Jokic included, that are just experts and masters at their craft. Unreal.
And revolutionizing the position, like revolutionizing the way the game is played. Like that is a beautiful thing by him. Not the only thing he did. He did this too, by the way, in the course of the game, just absolutely showing off, showing out. Like, I don't know. We keep talking about skinny Luka and, athleticism, but look at
where did that come from? In sports, they talk about new dad energy, how, when players recently have children that they just like kind of go off. It's like dad strength. I know Jokic's horse just won some sort of big, race over the summer. Maybe this is horse dad energy, horse dad strength, that he's just feeling refreshed and rejuvenated from the success of his horses.
I need to go get a horse, apparently, if I want to have that real strength. All right, not in Europe, but let's stick with some basketball here. Let's get to Lance Stevenson and Michael Beasley. The two of them just gassing each other up, getting each other. Two guys that are known for their ability to, let's say, talk during NBA games, talking to each other in an uplifting way. Caroline, we should start doing this before every show. Like you and I just like headbutt and just start screaming, "You're the man! You're the man!"
See, this is another kind of thing similar to the Jokic slap. I know it was all in good faith. This doesn't look like a very kind and nice conversation. This is not how my friends and I talk to each other when we're trying to hype each other up. But hey, again, I don't yuck anybody's yum. And if this is what gets you going, then let's do it. Let's go. Let's roll. You do what you need to do. This is not for me.
I kind of love it. I kind of love it like that. I respond to that well when I'm doing in any sort of a league action. That definitely. Let's keep scrolling. Some other things that caught our eyes over the weekend. The Brewers' winning streak has come to an end thanks to the Reds. Thanks for making sure none of the rest of us have fun, Cincinnati. We were all enjoying this Milwaukee thing, but no, can't have nice things.
See, I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I'm a massive St. Louis Cardinals fan. I'm supposed to hate the Milwaukee Brewers, but even I, a diehard born and bred St. Louis Cardinals fan, have fallen in love with this Brewers team, and I've been rooting for this streak. I've been rooting for the free burgers, but the Reds have to go out there and just ruin everybody's fun. But the entire story of the Milwaukee Brewers this entire season has been such a fun one. It is the year of the small market, and I am so incredibly here for it. We will actually have our friend Jake Mintz from the Barbacast join Yahoo Sports Daily tomorrow to talk more Major League Baseball, so stay tuned there. A lot of fun stories happening in MLB.
All right, so let's take a look at a goat. I just need to get to this. What's a myotonic goat? Look at that. Look at him, just rolling down. I mean, what they just
Oh. I can relate. Sometimes I just get so excited that I just freeze. We've been talking,
that
we've been in some GOAT conversations. Scottie Scheffler, Patrick Mahomes, Nikola Jokic. Who is the GOAT that freezes up in excitement and surprise in sports?
uh, I mean, the goat of freezing is definitely Harden, isn't it? Oh man, Harden just catching strays out of nowhere here.
Oh
I'm just
man.
saying. I will say
Oh
Annabelle does
man.
this a lot. Like when Annabelle sees me walk by and thinks that there's a chance she's going to get belly rubs, she kind of flops. So maybe she's actually
Okay.
myotonic. I'm not smart enough
She's a
to know what
myotonic
myotonic actually.
Annabelle.
Yeah, there we go. Myotonic
Yeah,
Annabelle. All right, so let's
I
take a
can
look at this
relate.
fantasy football. This is a fantasy football league moment that is absolutely incredible. I think we should bring this to this show, Yahoo Sports Daily. They are doing an in-person draft, but not just an in-person draft, my friend. They show the trophy. They are in it. Look at the suits. Oh, this is so good. This is so good.
I love the dedication to the fantasy football draft. I've seen so many good videos come out like this on social media, even the national anthem. I mean, I appreciate the commitment. So many good videos from fantasy drafts. I saw one of an older man had like a full binder and he was taking notes and highlighting and circling things all for his fantasy football draft. So I so respect all of this. I would be absolutely for this. The question would be, who's singing the national anthem, Fitz? Is it you? You are a resident
Uh,
Grammy Award winner. I think it
uh,
has to be
that
you.
that I've sung the anthem a few times in life, but I prefer to play it on fiddle. I played it for the Raiders a few times. I played it for the
That
Nashville
counts.
MLS Stadium opening. So like, and I do it for Friends Beer Olympics all the time. So like, yeah, I think if I can, I'll just bring out the fiddle. We'll play the national anthem, and then we'll have a draft. This show needs a league for sure. But I think if we're going to do it, I'm just letting the bosses know as they watch this, like if they wanted to fly us all out and put us up at a resort for a couple of days where we could do it the right way. I mean, just think of it as, I think that's an opportunity. Everybody gets suited and booted. We make sure that we put ourselves in the best situation possible. I love this. And I will say
Suited,
this,
all of the above.
I'm in. I think that the best part, and look, Yahoo's obviously known for our fantasy football work. I think the best part of fantasy football is this, like the draft, the trash talking, the punishments, like the week in and week out is fine. But these are the moments that really tell you why so many people flock to fantasy football. It's because it creates a different level of conversation and camaraderie. And as you get older in life, it's tougher and tougher as people move to different places and have families, and all of a sudden life just sort of gets away from you and you realize that you don't get the same connective opportunity with your friends. I genuinely believe that part of the magic of fantasy football is exactly what we're seeing right there, Caroline.
And it's also really fun to make your friends that lose your fantasy football league do a bunch of things that you don't want to do. Sit in a Waffle House or, take the ACT. That one is a personal favorite of mine, but I'm 100% with you. It's one of my favorite things to do with my friends and colleagues every single year. And Yahoo Sports is your place to be for all things fantasy football.
Remember, we're still rolling out 28 days of fantasy, new features being shown to you every single day. If you haven't downloaded the Yahoo Fantasy app, get out there, do it, join along, have some fun with us. We've got a big week for Yahoo Sports Daily coming. Celebrity interviews, all sorts of talk, and we've got some big guests tomorrow, so be sure to stick with us every day, 9 to 11. Thank you so much for watching. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We'll see you early tomorrow morning.